My husband cheated on our wedding night with my maid of honor. Imagine this. It's the night of your wedding. You've just married the love of your life, the person you've dreamed of spending forever with. It's supposed to be the happiest moment of your life, but in the blink of an eye, your world shatters. Because on that very night, your wedding night, you discover that your new husband has been unfaithful. And not just with anyone, with your maid of honor, your best friend, the person you trusted most. This is the story of OP, a woman who thought she was stepping into a new chapter of happiness, only to face the ultimate betrayal from the two people she loved and trusted the most, her husband and her closest friend. And it happened on the night they exchanged vows. By the end of this story, you'll be asking yourself, how could someone do this on their wedding night? Could you ever forgive such a betrayal? Or would it be the end of everything? Let's dive into this shocking tale. OP met her husband, let's call him David, 3 years before their wedding. From the moment they met, there was an undeniable spark. David was charming, attentive, and everything OP had ever dreamed of in a partner. They had the kind of whirlwind romance that makes you believe in love at first sight. Within months, they were inseparable, planning their future together. But David made OP feel like the most important person in the world. He was always thoughtful, always there for her when she needed him. They shared the same dreams, building a life together, starting a family, and growing old side by side. To OP, it felt like she had found her soulmate. And then there was Rachel, OP's maid of honor. OP and Rachel had been best friends since childhood. They had been through everything together, first crushes, heartbreaks, graduations, and now OP's wedding. Rachel had always been a loyal friend, someone OP could confide in about anything. When OP got engaged, there was no question in her mind that Rachel would be her maid of honor. Rachel and David got along well, which OP loved. It made everything easier, having her two favorite people get along. Rachel had been there every step of the way during the wedding planning process, helping OP pick out her dress, organizing the bridal shower, and even calming OP's nerves on the big day. To OP, everything felt perfect. The wedding was beautiful, straight out of a fairy tale. Surrounded by friends and family, OP and David exchanged vows in a stunning ceremony. The love in the air was palpable, and OP felt like the luckiest woman in the world. She had her dream wedding, her dream husband, and her best friend by her side. Little did she know, this perfect day would soon turn into a nightmare. As the reception carried on into the night, OP began to notice small, unsettling things. David, who had been so attentive all day, suddenly seemed distant. He spent more time away from her, chatting with friends, wandering off to different parts of the venue. At first, OP didn't think much of it. After all, it had been a long day, and David was probably tired. But then there was Rachel. Normally, Rachel would have been by OP's side, celebrating with her, making sure she was having the best night of her life. But as the night went on, OP noticed that Rachel had disappeared. She wasn't on the dance floor, she wasn't with the other bridesmaids, and she hadn't been seen in a while. OP started to feel a little anxious, but she brushed it off, thinking that Rachel was just taking a break after all the excitement. David continued to drift away as the evening wore on. When OP finally caught up with him, he was vague, saying he had just been checking on something at the venue. OP felt a growing sense of unease but told herself not to make a big deal out of it. It was their wedding night, and she didn't want to let small things ruin the day. As the guests started to leave and the reception wound down, OP noticed Rachel still hadn't reappeared. She asked a few people if they had seen her, but no one knew where she was. OP's unease grew into suspicion. Where had Rachel gone, and why was David acting so distant? Finally, after most of the guests had left, OP decided to go back to the bridal suite to gather her things. But when she got there, what she saw made her heart stop. The door was slightly ajar, and inside, standing far too close together, were David and Rachel. OP froze. They didn't see her at first, but the tension between them was undeniable. Her mind raced. Why were they together? Why weren't they out at the reception? OP's stomach dropped as she watched them, their body language intimate in a way that didn't belong between a bride's best friend and her new husband. David and Rachel were too close, whispering quietly as if they were sharing a secret. OP's heart pounded in her chest. She felt frozen, like her body was betraying her, refusing to move as her worst nightmare unfolded before her eyes. It was then that Rachel noticed OP standing at the door. Her face paled, and she quickly stepped back from David. But the damage had been done. OP had seen enough to know that something was horribly, horribly wrong. Have you ever had a moment when your world suddenly came crashing down? When everything you thought was real turned out to be a lie? OP felt like her life had shattered in an instant. Could you imagine finding out this kind of betrayal on your wedding night? OP's voice trembled as she demanded to know what was going on. David, clearly caught off guard, tried to play it off, claiming they were just talking. But OP wasn't stupid. She had seen the way they were standing, the way they were looking at each other. Rachel, on the other hand, was speechless. She couldn't even make eye contact with OP. OP's anger flared as she confronted them. "What are you doing here?" she asked, her voice shaking. "Why are you together like this? On our wedding night?" David fumbled for words, his face growing pale, but OP could see the guilt in his eyes. It was Rachel who broke first. With tears in her eyes, she confessed. She told OP that something had been going on between her and David for months. OP's heart shattered into a million pieces. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. Rachel, her maid of honor, her best friend, had been sleeping with her fiancé behind her back, and they had the audacity to continue their affair on OP's wedding night. Everything around OP felt like it was spinning. How could this be happening? How could the two people she trusted most betray her like this? OP demanded answers, but David and Rachel were too busy blaming each other to give her any real explanation. All they could say was that it just happened, a pathetic excuse that only made the betrayal hurt more. OP's mind was racing. Every moment of her relationship with David, every memory she had shared with Rachel, was now tainted by their betrayal. She felt sick, like she wanted to scream, cry, and disappear all at once. Her wedding night, the night that was supposed to mark the beginning of her new life, had turned into the worst moment of her existence. As the reality of what had happened sank in, OP felt herself collapse emotionally. The tears came flooding out, uncontrollable and relentless. David tried to comfort her, but OP pushed him away, disgusted by his touch. How could he have done this to her? How could he stand there and lie to her face, even on their wedding night? Rachel, too, was crying, but her tears did nothing to heal the pain she had caused. OP couldn't even look at her. This was the woman who had stood by her side, who had sworn to protect her. And yet she had been the one to destroy everything. Rachel kept saying she didn't mean for it to happen, that it had been a mistake. But to OP, it didn't matter. The damage was done. OP stormed out of the room, her heart in pieces. She didn't know where to go, what to do. Her entire life had been flipped upside down in a matter of moments. The wedding that was supposed to mark the happiest day of her life had turned into a nightmare. And the worst part? There was no going back. Can you imagine what OP was going through? On the night that was supposed to be filled with love and celebration, she had been betrayed in the worst possible way. How would you react if you found out that your new husband and your best friend had been betraying you like this? Could you ever forgive them? In the days following the wedding, OP was a wreck. She couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't think straight. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw David and Rachel together, saw the look of guilt on their faces as they stood there, caught in their lies. The betrayal was too much to bear. She had lost not only her husband, but her best friend in the same instant. OP tried to figure out what to do next, but she was paralyzed by pain. The marriage that had started just days ago was already over in her mind. How could she ever stay with a man who had cheated on her with her best friend? But at the same time, she didn't know how to move on. How do you pick up the pieces after such a devastating betrayal? OP also felt an overwhelming sense of shame. How had she not seen this coming? How had she been so blind to the affair that had been happening right under her nose? She replayed every moment in her mind, trying to find the signs she had missed. But it only made her feel worse. The pain wasn't just about the betrayal. It was about the loss of trust in herself. She felt like a fool, like she had been played for a fool by the two people she trusted most. David, of course, tried to apologize. He begged OP to forgive him, saying it had been a mistake, that he still loved her, that they could work through it. But OP wasn't sure if she could ever trust him again. His words felt hollow, like they were too little, too late. How could he claim to love her when he had betrayed her in the worst way imaginable? Every time she looked at him, all she saw was the betrayal, the lies, the infidelity. OP couldn't even stand to be in the same room as him. The thought of forgiving him seemed impossible. How could she forgive someone who had destroyed her life? And as for Rachel, she was nowhere to be found. After that night, she disappeared. OP didn't hear from her, didn't receive any apology, any explanation. Rachel had been her best friend for years, and now she was gone, leaving OP to deal with the emotional wreckage on her own. What would you do in OP's shoes? Could you even imagine forgiving someone after such a betrayal? Or would it be the end of the relationship for good? Trust is hard to rebuild once it's been broken, and OP was struggling to figure out how she could ever move forward. As the days turned into weeks, OP was faced with an impossible decision. Could she try to work things out with David? Or was this betrayal too much to forgive? Every fiber of her being wanted to walk away, to leave him and never look back. But at the same time, the love she had for him still lingered, making it harder to cut ties completely. OP sought advice from friends and family, but their answers varied. Some told her to leave him immediately, to never look back. Others encouraged her to give him a chance, to try to rebuild what they had before the affair. But no one could truly understand the depth of the pain she was feeling. No one could make the decision for her. Then out of the blue, Rachel reappeared. She showed up at OP's doorstep one day, tears streaming down her face. She begged for forgiveness, saying she had made the biggest mistake of her life. She told OP that she had been overwhelmed by guilt, that she had stayed away because she didn't know how to face her. But now, she was ready to own up to what she had done. OP felt torn. On one hand, she had loved Rachel like a sister. They had shared so many memories, so many years of friendship. But on the other hand, Rachel had committed the ultimate betrayal. Could OP ever forgive her for what she had done? Or was their friendship beyond repair? OP confronted Rachel with all the anger, hurt, and betrayal she had been holding inside. She demanded to know why. Why had Rachel done this? Why had she destroyed their friendship, their bond, for a man? Rachel didn't have any good answers. She could only say that it had been a mistake, that she had never meant to hurt OP. But OP wasn't sure if that was enough. Ultimately, OP knew she had to make a choice. She could either continue to live in the pain of the past, or she could try to move forward, whether that meant forgiving Rachel and David or walking away from them both. It was the hardest decision of her life. What would you do if you were OP? Could you ever forgive someone who had betrayed you so deeply? Or would you walk away and start over? Betrayal has a way of breaking even the strongest bonds, but sometimes forgiveness is the only way to heal. In the end, OP decided that she couldn't stay with David. The trust had been shattered beyond repair, and no amount of apologies could change that. She filed for an annulment, ending the marriage before it had even begun. It was painful, but OP knew that it was the right decision for her. She couldn't live with the constant reminder of the betrayal. As for Rachel, OP wasn't ready to forgive her. She told Rachel that their friendship was over, that she couldn't move past what had happened. Rachel was devastated, but OP had to protect herself. She couldn't continue to surround herself with people who had hurt her so deeply. OP spent the following months focusing on herself. She threw herself into work, spent time with friends who supported her, and began the long process of healing. It wasn't easy. There were days when the pain felt unbearable, when she wondered if she had made the right decision. But slowly she began to rebuild her life. She started seeing a therapist to help her process the betrayal, and with time, she began to let go of the anger and pain that had consumed her. OP realized that while she couldn't control what had happened, she could control how she responded to it, and she chose to move forward with strength and resilience. Eventually, OP found peace. She realized that while David and Rachel had taken something from her, they hadn't taken everything. She still had her future, her strength, and her ability to create a new life for herself. And in the end, that was all she needed. Have you ever been betrayed by someone you loved and trusted? How did you move forward? And what advice would you give to someone who's been through a similar experience? OP's journey was filled with pain, but in the end, she found a way to heal. So what do you think? Was OP right to walk away from both David and Rachel? Or should she have given them a chance to make things right? Betrayal is never easy to forgive, especially when it comes from the people closest to you. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Could you ever forgive someone who betrayed you like this? Or would it be the end of the relationship for good? Let me know in the comments below. The ultimate betrayal on her wedding night? How could anyone do this? I can't even wrap my head around the idea of someone doing this on the wedding night. It's one thing to cheat, which is terrible enough, but to do it on the night that's supposed to symbolize your commitment? And with her best friend, no less? David and Rachel are absolutely disgusting. OP trusted them both with her life, and they stabbed her in the back when she was most vulnerable. I hope OP cuts them out of her life for good. There's no coming back from this kind of betrayal. Right? The sheer audacity of it is mind-blowing. Rachel must have no conscience whatsoever to smile through the whole ceremony, knowing she was betraying her best friend like that. And David? He doesn't deserve a second of OP's time. He destroyed their marriage before it even began. OP needs to walk away from them both. The fact that it happened on their wedding night just adds another layer of cruelty. It's like they couldn't even wait for the ink to dry on the marriage certificate before betraying her. They're both selfish, and neither deserves OP's forgiveness. She's better off without them. OP deserves better. Cut them out and never look back. I feel for OP, but honestly, this is a blessing in disguise. She found out who David and Rachel truly are before she wasted years of her life with them. It hurts like hell, but she needs to take this as an opportunity to start fresh. People who can betray you like that don't deserve to stay in your life. OP should cut them both out completely and never look back. There are people out there who will value and respect her. David and Rachel clearly don't. I agree 100%. As devastating as this is, finding out now might be the best thing for her in the long run. Imagine if OP had found out years later after investing even more time into a relationship built on lies. She deserves someone who respects and loves her unconditionally. David and Rachel can rot in the mess they've made. Totally. It's better to be hurt now and heal than to live in a marriage where you can't trust your partner. OP has the chance to rebuild her life and find real love with someone who actually deserves her. I hope she realizes how strong she is and leaves these toxic people behind. Rachel is no friend. She's a snake. Rachel is the worst kind of friend. To smile in OP's face and play the supportive maid of honor while having an affair with her husband? That's next-level betrayal. OP needs to block her on everything, burn that bridge, and never look back. People like Rachel don't change, they just lie and manipulate. OP's trust was completely shattered, and Rachel doesn't deserve a second chance. Exactly. Friends don't do this. Rachel didn't just betray OP once. She betrayed her every single time she smiled, helped plan the wedding, or gave OP advice. The entire friendship was a lie, and OP needs to realize that cutting Rachel out isn't losing a friend, it's getting rid of a toxic person. Rachel was never a real friend to begin with. Real friends support you and protect your happiness. Rachel did the exact opposite and actively destroyed OP's life. I can't believe the nerve she had to show up at OP's wedding, knowing what she'd done. This kind of betrayal destroys trust for life. What David and Rachel did isn't just about cheating. It's about shattering trust on such a deep level that it's hard to ever feel secure in a relationship again. OP is going to carry the scars of this for a long time. I really hope she finds support and healing, but this is the kind of betrayal that makes you question everyone. It's going to take time for her to trust anyone again. This is so true. Trust is hard enough to build, but when the people you love and trust most betray you like this, it changes how you view relationships forever. OP is going to need time to rebuild her confidence, but she will heal. I just hope she doesn't let this keep her from finding happiness in the future. Agreed. The psychological damage from something like this is huge. OP will likely second-guess every relationship moving forward. I hope she can find the right people who will help her heal and show her that not everyone is capable of such betrayal. David's apologies mean nothing. He knew exactly what he was doing. David's pathetic excuses about the affair just happening are beyond infuriating. Affairs don't just happen. He made a conscious choice to betray OP over and over again. And doing it on their wedding night is the ultimate slap in the face. He doesn't deserve any sympathy, and OP should run as far away from him as possible. His actions show that he's not sorry. He's just sorry he got caught. Exactly. He wasn't sorry when he was sneaking around behind OP's back. And he wasn't sorry when he was standing at the altar, lying through his vows. Now he's only trying to save face. OP should ignore his pleas and end things immediately. David made his choices, and now he has to live with the consequences. I don't think there's anything he could say or do that would make up for the pain he's caused. OP deserves so much better than his lies and betrayal. OP is strong for walking away. It's the hardest choice, but the right one. Leaving a marriage so soon after it started is heartbreaking. But OP is incredibly strong for choosing herself and her well-being over staying with a man who betrayed her. Walking away from a toxic situation takes real courage. She's setting a boundary that says she won't tolerate disrespect. And that's something to admire. Agreed. It takes immense strength to stand up for yourself in a situation like this. OP is choosing to heal and move forward, instead of staying in a relationship that would only bring her more pain. She's showing that her self-worth is more important than any marriage certificate. Leaving a marriage is never easy, especially when it's so fresh, but OP knows that she deserves better. Staying with David would only prolong the heartbreak. She's making the right choice, and in time, she'll find someone who values and respects her. Rachel's apology means nothing. You can't undo this kind of damage. Rachel showing up with tears and an apology is too little, too late. She didn't care about OP's feelings when she was sneaking around with David. Now that she's been caught, she wants forgiveness? No way. Some betrayals cut too deep, and no amount of apologizing can make things right. OP is right to cut Rachel out of her life for good. Rachel had her chance to be a good friend and she threw it away. She knew exactly what she was doing. And now she's only sorry because she's lost OP's friendship. OP shouldn't waste any more time on someone who never cared about her in the first place. Rachel's apology doesn't erase the pain she's caused. It's easy to say sorry when you're caught, but real friends don't put you in that position to begin with. OP is smart to protect herself and walk away. And if you found this story as heartbreaking and powerful as I did, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell for more stories like this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.